Hey guys, this is KSP with Tape, and today you join me for episode 6 of KSP Space Race. I want to say it's episode 6. And today we start with an SSTO. Yes, this is bound for the station, and its back wheels exploded just then, but that's fine. Anyway, yes, this is just a pretty simple SSTO, which is going to go to the station and complete my contract. I need to add 5 more people, 5 more crew capacity to the station to complete my contract. So this is totally uncrewed. It does have a cockpit, but that was because that was the only really kind of single-person storage I could find. So yeah, this doesn't have any nuclear engines or something or anything. It's just bound for low curb in orbit, and we're just going to get up to as much speed as possible with the jet engines, of course, as we're doing here, before we fire up the rockets. And you can see I've got all of the windows open, so I can see if any are flaming out prematurely, so I can switch over. I don't actually have action groups right now, like the 1, 2, 3, 4 and stuff. Or the numbers, some may call it. I just use abort to switch the engines and lights to turn them off. So yeah, but this has a pretty decent amount of delta V. Actually, I was a little worried because I'm having trouble with SSTOs recently. I've been trying to design some a little bit in my free time, so I'm better at it. But I'm just surprisingly not great at it. Like, I either don't get too much thrust, or when I do have just enough thrust, I can't fly it properly. I don't know. I'm mostly doing rockets. But yeah, you can see I'm just planning my maneuver as little delta V as I can without spending ages. But yeah, rendezvousing's pretty easy, and the less delta V you expend to get to the station, the less you're going to need to slow down at the station. So it's all just good. But I am quite inclined relative to the station, which is a bit of a problem. Because, well, my launch site is just below the equator, so it does actually add quite a lot of delta V. And of course, Penguin put the station in a really low orbit, which makes it kind of hard to rendezvous with, so I've started launching in front of it so I can slow down to reach it. So I guess it's probably better for delta V to be in a low orbit, but still, it's just easier if it's in a higher orbit. Pro tip, Penguin! Anyway, but here we are approaching it. I cut out the rest of the approach because, you know, that's just a line on a screen, basically. But here we are at Calute Station, and I need to dock this. I've set up the RCS thrusters relatively well. They're the plain ones, so they're just on the sides. But yeah, I'm just lining up here, and then I do a little bit of maneuvering in until I am here, and then just kind of back onto the station. And I will eventually control it from the docking port. Yeah, here we are. We've just drifted into the dark. I really need to see if they've updated the ambient light mod, because that really does help. But anyway, yeah, it's just a matter of trying to hit the station, and I've retracted the solar panels on the station so I don't smash them, because this is quite a big plane. My initial plan was to leave this here, just because I don't really like returning SSTOs, because it's kind of difficult, and bring the pod back. But if you look at the pod, there's no freaking parachutes on it, so yeah, that's good. Good designing, Peter. Anyway, we complete the mission and that's all good. But after extending the solar panels, I need to bring my crew home because I don't have any pilots on the ground right now. So we'll throw them in the cockpit and the crew cabin. But this could be a pretty good low curb and transport vehicle. But sadly, we are in a competition, so spending a lot of money on low curb and transport vehicles, which don't get me a lot of money or science, is not going to happen. So this is probably the last time you'll ever see this. So let's go home, and you may realize that it might not be a bad thing for this to be the last time you see this in a little bit. So yeah, also, if you remember at the start when we took off, the wheels exploded, so I don't really know how I'm going to land this, but if I worry about too many things at once, then it's just very hard to do things. So what I do is think, I will deal with that when I come to it. Right now we need to re-enter the atmosphere in a pretty kind of bulky but not super heat-resistant plane. And the main problem is that B9 cockpit at the front, which is very beautiful, has the problem of being not very heat-resistant, unlike the rest of the plane. I used it because it was light, and mass is obviously a really big issue when you're building an SSTO. Maybe I went too far. So yeah, I'm trying to use the RCS to slow down, but luckily this is a plane, so I can use the aerodynamics to my advantage, which I will do. I initially tried doing these kind of weaves that the space shuttle used to do. It would do turns, and it would do that to line itself up with its runway, and also just to slow it down. But it's getting a little unstable, and I'm also pretty low in the atmosphere, so I decide at some point to pull out so I can just burn off some velocity, skip off the atmosphere, as you can see I'm starting to do here. Fly up out of the thick atmosphere, keep burning off velocity, and then when we have our final descent, it'll be much less intense, which will be good. So yeah, weird blip there. Anyway, it doesn't. So I do fire up the engines a little bit. Mostly to try and get power. The other reason I'm doing this is so I can get that solar panel extended, because if you look at the top, I'm running out of power. And that shouldn't be a problem because I have RCS and control services and a pilot, but I'm very worried, and I think I already transferred, I transferred Jeb back because I'm pretty sure that cockpit's going to explode, so now I can't have a pilot. So the probe has to do all of the work. So I've started shutting down the reaction wheels because I have RCS and control services. And gimbaling engines, that's all you need. You don't really need SAS, although it does help just to have a bit of stability. And you can see, luckily I did get him out there, because that just breaks, and that screws up the aerodynamics of the aircraft. Luckily it's an incredibly light cockpit, but this starts to tumble, which is fine, because that means it's bleeding off velocity. And you can see this plane is very heat resistant. It was just the cockpit wasn't. So now this is totally probe controlled, and you can see my electric charge slowly depleting before I eventually do shut down its reaction wheels completely, which I should have done, but they've changed it very slightly, so I was a little confused, and I wasn't thinking, and I was just trying to pull it into control. You can see me trying to fight it here. So what I do is a pretty standard maneuver where you think you should try and slow down to do that, but what you do is you push the engines on, so you're diving like a rocket, and that'll stabilize you a little bit. And I'm not really sure I can get back to the runway with this amount of electric charge, so I decided to ditch it in the desert with one engine. So yeah, luckily this is probably like the 10th most daring maneuver I've ever done in a plane. Actually, probably not even top 10. So I'm pretty confident about this. It's got a lot of plane to explode to shield the cockpit. I'm going to flare at the last minute, of course, so that I can actually smash the back of the plane and slow myself down. And I have put it into 1x time accelerate, so you can see the beauty of this landing. So we're coming in, and it is shrouded in explosions. It does exactly what it's supposed to. It loses all of the back, rolls over, and the fuselage of the plane is safe. So those crew are safe. That is good, because we have Jebediah in there, very important not to kill our main Kerbal penguin. And we have Taurus too, we'll get paid for. So we get quite a bit of money back for that broken plane, actually, but it was very expensive, so yeah. But we have got quite a bit of money. We've got the main science center now, and I can do a lot with the level 2 launch pads, so yeah. So we've grabbed all our money for that. Now we have another cool mission. This is our first rocket mission, and we are going to put a base on Minmus. Yes, in the last episode, Penguin put a station around Minmus, which, come to think of it, I totally forgot to splice into my file. Luckily, it's not super important for the episode, but I have been rushing my videos quite a lot in the last few days, because I need to get a lot done, because I'm going away for a little bit. So, yeah. Sorry about that, Penguin, but, we won't see your station there, so I'm just going to say it didn't exist. No, he launched a station and some stuff, I think. But I think it was all with one launch, because he used a level 3 vehicle, because I think he has a lab on it, which is actually quite hard to get out of Minmus. I made this pretty much as light as possible so I could fit it into a level 2 launch, although I feel like I could probably get a big station out to Minmus with a level 2. But that is obviously because I have been playing a lot of career mode with Road to Exploration, kind of perfecting vehicles. So, yeah. Anyway, we are just blasting off into orbit. I did quite like this rocket. I wish I talked about it while we could see it. But the lower stage uses multiple small engines. I think it uses 6 of those KW rocketry engines. And then the top one uses this big-ass engine. But yeah, we run out of fuel just before we're in orbit, which is fine because I have excess fuel on the base. And this is just one base thing. I use those aeroplane cabins because they're the lightest way of getting a significant amount of crew out to Minmus, and I have to get like 8 crew or something ridiculous. So yeah, and I also needed a cupola, that's why I have the cupola, not because it was my choice. But yeah, this should be fine. It's also covered in a bunch of other crap. It's got some docking ports on there because they were like, put docking ports on there. It's got a couple of Kerbal attachment system pipes so I can send some stuff down there. Sadly I didn't bring an engineer like a moron, so I won't be able to use them this episode, which is a bit of a shame. And it has various life support, but with one crew this can support a crew for 170 days, so I'll have to come and rescue him at some point, or bring more life support. But again, actually no, he's not my only pilot anymore. I did hire an engineer and a pilot. They were relatively cheap, but I did buy some more crew, because I'm a little scarce on crew. But yeah, it's kind of not telling me I'm going to get my encounter, except it kind of is, and I know I am, so here we are. There's my encounter with Minmus. I'm just going to correct my inclination here, because I couldn't before, because it wasn't showing me my encounter. So yeah, we'll just burn north a little bit. And yeah, that tank on top does drop off. That was just to get us out to Minmus. So yeah, and then we just need to slow down and land on one of the flats, because the flats are nice to land on, but I've already landed on the flats and the greater flats. So I think there are the lesser flats. I think there's still some great flats, because if there's greater flats, then you expect that they'll be great for the flats, right? And I think there may be even another set of flats. There's a lot of flats on Minmus. Not flat buildings, but maybe I'll go into that. I'll build some, you know, get some business going. Talk to A Industries, see what kind of deal I can get on flats. But yeah. Where was I trying to land here? I think, I warped time forward a little bit because I needed to land on these flats. So yeah, this was just a little bit of time warping later. Oh yeah, this base is called I totally landed on Minmus first base. So yeah, I think these flats are new, so I take an EVA report above them, and yeah, those are indeed just the great flats, which is cool, so I just decided to land. You can land pretty aggressively on Minmus. It has a pretty low orbital velocity. And here we are coming down with more than enough fuel. I thought I might be a little bit strapped for fuel, but I'm actually okay. Jeb looking happy as hell to be spending a little time on Minmus away from Coben and the horrific collaborative war. No, of course these take place in totally different universes. But there we are, touching down on the surface, and we get our contract for about 400,000 funds, which is good, and we got 100,000 advance. We take a little science, which we'll bring back at some point, and we get Jeb out to take the reports out of the experiment things, and then we've also got to plant a flag, because we're being paid to plant a flag as well. I don't know who keeps paying me to plant flags, but they really like flags. Maybe it's just vexillologists, I guess. So there's our flag, and Tape's base, no penguins allowed, and then just freedom is the only way, yeah, because of course we're America, Penguin is the Soviet Union, which is a weird one since I use Soviet-style rockets and he uses more American-style rockets with big engines rather than lots of engines. But anyway, there we are. And we grab a couple of missions. I totally didn't see what that was, but I think it was to put a station in orbit of the moon. Oh no, it was to get some science from Minmus. So I just transmit a bit of the science back that I can get 100% for. And there we go. We complete another mission with this base. That's already paying off. So yeah, that's what that was. Sorry, I shouldn't have sped up the mission thing, but I hastily edited this. Anyway, so we are bound for the moon again, and we're doing something, we need to grab some reports and put a satellite in a couple of orbits. Well, we actually technically have to put 2 satellites in 2 different orbits, but that's not going to happen. So we're sending this up. It's got just all of the Delta V again. I was going to make this reusable, but making a rocket reusable is, like, not particularly hard, but it's annoyingly time-consuming, so I didn't. And then we're just going to burn this into orbit, and you can see I've got this tiny probe on this giant rocket, because I just wanted to have all of the Delta V, and I didn't want to have to worry, because it took me like a whole day to design the SSTO, because I had so much trouble with it. I have apparently lost all of my SSTO skills, which is weird, because I got one out to Duno one time, which is, I don't know. Anyway, so we're just going to burn on to the moon. Pretty standard. When you see the moon coming over the horizon, you light up your engines, and you will arrive at the moon. See? And yeah, it's pretty good. All in one. Didn't have to make any corrections. I'm getting really good at the moon, which is good, because I've been playing this game for like a gajillion years. And this has a nuclear stage as well. So it has all of the Delta V, because it's going to have to change its orbit a bunch of times, and it has to do some temperature reports low down. So I thought, why risk it? Just put a nuclear engine on there, and then we won't have any trouble. Although it was expensive, but I'm getting paid a lot, and I have the most expensive building now anyway, the main science center, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. This whole episode is mostly just securing myself with money, really. I mean, finishing the space station, getting the base, both pretty lucrative. This whole mission's pretty lucrative, and I have something at the end of this, which is, I think, just science, but yeah. Anyway, flying over some flags there, I need to get myself down into a reasonable orbit to take these temperature scans, so that I can find out how hot the moon is, just so we know where to land for our beach resort, because obviously we're going to put a beach on the moon or something. Just put another Miami on the moon, and then just send all of the old people there, because old people live in Miami, I guess. Topical! Anyway, firing up the nuclear engine, we'll head on down there. It also has a bunch of other scientific equipment, which won't really give me any science, but the 2 satellite missions require it. Basically, the sort of rule for kind of spamming missions is you can do as many missions as you want around one body, really, because it will be a little spammy to go from the moon to Minmus, and then maybe back to the moon, and then to Duno, which I probably could do. With a big enough rocket, you can do pretty much anything. But So yeah, so I'm just gonna get a bunch of missions from around the moon, get a bunch of money, and secure myself financially, so that I can worry more about science and more about getting a warp drive. Although I will have to get a lot of money at some point, because as you get the more advanced technology, they are quite expensive. So maybe I should really actually reuse some rockets. But again, this was a little bit rushed, because it took these videos always take me ages, because I'm always designing new vehicles for it, unlike in Road to Exploration, because obviously I want to have that slightly better vehicle to do better things, and often I'm not very good at doing that quickly, and I get frustrated, and then I just, and then I record it the day after, hence this being 2 days later than I told Penguin it would be. So yeah, and the first mission in these videos is always quite frustrating, and then it gets easier. Like, this was a lot of fun, but the first SSTO, oof, goddamn. Anyway, so here we are. Just taking the second temperature report, getting a bunch more money, and yeah. And I did try to get a little bit of science there, but apparently I've mined all of the science from orbit of the moon, which I guess makes sense since I've been here a few times now. But yeah, I should probably send a lunar rover down. Lunar? No, it's moon. So Mooner rover, because it's not the real world. And just drive everywhere, you know? just drive everywhere, and send the science back. I have a lot of patience for KSP these days, after so much flying places in collaborative warfare. But yeah, I'm just making sure I'll hit this final temperature report, and we'll be good. Pretty lucrative pay, and then burn myself into one of these satellite orbits, and then into the other. Yeah, Bill's Hollow, which is, I don't know, but we get all the money for that. I think that was like a lot of money. I, again, sped through it, but yeah, just lots of money. So yeah. I'm thinking I'm going to go into this blue orbit first, because that's going the same way I am. Then I'll have to change my orbital direction at the top. Luckily, I have a lot of delta V, so that'll be fine. Although I actually start burning to get into this pink orbit, and then realize, oh, I should be going to the blue orbit. But again, loads of delta V. Doesn't really matter what I do. I could just go to Duna and back, and then do this mission. Which I probably should have done. Although I missed the Duna window because I had other things to do. Because unless you're landing on Duna, it's not super lucrative. I wonder if Penguin is landing on Duna. I haven't checked, but because I know he's obviously going there. But if he's not landing, then that's a massive waste of a turn. But yeah, I'm thinking I might go to Moho just because it's quicker. And landing on Moho is difficult, but not impossible. And I also just built a Moho landing vehicle in my other series where I have less advanced technology. So, yeah, this is how fast you can go through technology if you're in competition with someone. But yeah, we get into this orbit and we get paid. How much do we get paid? Let's quickly see. 100 grand, 11 science, and 14 reputation. And then we just need to get into this orbit, so I'll just turn myself around. I didn't put a reaction wheel on this stupidly, or any additional batteries, but apparently this uses like no electric charge, so that's fine. And then I just need to turn my orbit around, which is kind of difficult without the SAS that holds you into the kind of marker, so I just kind of go on either side of it occasionally to try and put myself in the right orbit. And you can see I do indeed, and still have like a gajillions of fuel left. So I think, actually, if ever I get more moon missions, I'll just use this spacecraft, because it still has so much delta V. So yeah, that's a win. This will just always get all of this moon missions. That might be a bit spammy, but maybe if there's just like one, you know. Anyway, so got all of that, and now for our final mission after doing all of those moon missions and probably getting like 600 grand, we have another one of these Phoenix 6 launches. Yes, my SSTO that went to Minmus last time is heading back. I thought I'd just use one that I had already designed because it's effective, and this is going to the base on Minmus. Yes, to our I totally landed on Minmus first base, and yeah, so it's got a science payload and I think a little bit of life support just in case. And basically, I'm just going to do some science, some more science, because I didn't take all of the scientific equipment on my way to Minmus, and when I go and get Jeb, I'll pick up the science as well. I'm also thinking I might be able to fuel this up and use it kind of like a science rover. I'd need a scientist to reset the experiments though, but still, I can take more people to the Minmus base. I think it could be very lucrative. So yeah, this is pretty underpowered. Well, no, it's not underpowered because it does its job, but it's lacking power a little bit, so it does take quite a while to cruise up to altitude. This is actually a 4 times time accelerator, and it's still taking a while. So yeah, but But I do need to fire up the nuclear engine. I think I just did. I may have been looking away. But I will fire up the nuclear engine at some point, just to push me through the sound barrier and a little bit past, so that I can get more thrust into these rapier engines, so that I can climb more effectively. And you can see now I'm actually picking up speed, because the faster you're going, the more thrust you get out of these engines. So there is usually a limit to how far you'll actually get. But yeah, we're actually coming up to altitude now. Fire up the nuclear engine again and try and get as much speed as possible before firing up the rapiers in liquid fuel oxidizer mode. And we pull up heavily, try and lift our apoapsis. But I think I pull up for too long and bleed off too much velocity with drag, because I don't get that far, and I have to burn all of my oxidizer to get into orbit. So this is going to be a bit of a delta V tight mission. And if I have to land on Minmus with the nuclear engine, which is fine, but it doesn't give me a ton of margin, because last time I did use one burst from the rapiers just to make sure I didn't crash. But yeah, we're just going to complete burning into orbit with our nuclear engine, and everything will be good. The other thing is this has a slightly heavier payload, because it has a science payload and a life support payload, so yeah. Anyway, deploy the solar panel and plan our way to Minmus. I'm going to warp around a bit, because I think it'll have to be kind of here-ish. That's escape velocity. Yes, this can easily escape. It could probably fly past Duna, but again, I missed the window. But it couldn't do much else around Duna. Anyway, so yeah, this will take me on a good trajectory. Then I'll do a quick inclination change, and all will be good in the world. So yeah, just flying over that beautiful desert, which I believe is in my sort of jurisdiction, near my launch sites, near all of my non-equatorial launch sites. Penguin totally screwed me there. I think that was his plan. That's totally why I'm losing. I think it was actually because of the first episode I'm not losing, I was losing. Now I'm back in the game. It's going to be close. He was totally kicking my ass for a while, so I landed on a bunch of things first and was like, I'm winning! And then everyone was like, yeah, that makes sense. And then I was like, well, that's not actually the objective. But, well, I think the initial plan was for this series was, I was thinking, let's get 100 Kerbals to Lathe, but apparently that would take too long, which totally would. But I think warp drive is a good idea. Maybe we could call it warp drive or bust, but I think that was actually the initial name for Interstellar Quest. All of these trademarked! Trademarked in the minds of the people. Anyway, so yeah, you can see my fuel is running pretty dry here, but I'm much lighter than I was, because this is like 60% fuel. Its mass is like 60% fuel. So yeah. Anyway, just heading on up to Minmus and slowing down rather gently, hopefully. Yeah, hopefully gently. Otherwise, you know, death. Although, well, it's a probe, so not death, just long getting mad at us, getting sentient, coming back, and punchings in the legs. Yeah, we equip all of our probes with the ability to become sentient, get angry, and destroy the world, just in case they need to. Because, you know, it's probe rights, you know? They should have the ability to think. So, anyway, after a lot of kind of... Oh, no, not after deciding, I'm thinking of the last mission. I know exactly where to land. I have a base there with a funny name and a funny flag in it. Terrible pilot. No, it's Jeb. He's a great pilot. I was talking about me. So yeah, quick inclination change, and then just try and land roughly close to it. It's going to be pretty tight on fuel. I have 72 units left, which is probably about 160 meters per second delta V. No, it's a little more than that, but obviously there are gravity losses, so we should be fine, maybe? I don't know. What I should have done is try to do that thing where you just kill your vertical velocity and land laterally on your wheels, but I didn't think of that. So yeah, I think this is good. Yeah, fuel's running pretty dry. We're coming down, and you will see this at real time. We have 5 units of fuel, and we burn all of it. Oh no, we still have half a unit of fuel left, but we are slowing down rather nicely. Burn the rest of it, and we will hit the ground at about 3-4 meters a second and touch down totally gently, totally epically. I landed, and look at my fuel, 0 fuel. That's how to land awesomely. This can't go anywhere. But I was thinking I could probably refuel it, because there's quite a lot of fuel on the station. But I don't have an engineer, and only engineers can like move the pipes around, so I do switch to the station. I'm after grabbing a little science, because we still get science. But this needs to be closer to the station, and it has no fuel. So I get Jeb out, well, I first look inside the cupola, which is cool. But I can't move any of these, like, plugs, so that's a shame. I can't refuel it. I will have to send a rescue mission. No, like an engineer and a scientist and stuff. But that will all be in future episodes where we continue to land places first and almost be in a place where we can compete with Penguin. I will see you next time!